Good morning, podcast community. Yes, it's 10 o'clock Wednesday, and you're on the Nonprofit Podcast with my host, Glenda Hicks. So I just want to tell everybody that is out there. Next week, Glenda will be tied up. So we have a couple people in mind. So keep 10 o'clock on Wednesday on your calendar, especially if you want to grow your nonprofit. So, Glenda, for those that haven't heard you, which I think everybody has heard of you, but let's just say there's one person out there that hasn't heard of Glenda Hicks. Would you tell our viewers who you are, what you do, and who you serve?
Absolutely. Thank you, Pete. Good morning, everyone. And I'm excited to be here with you again this week, talking about all things nonprofit. I am a licensed and certified consultant and trainer, governance and operational efficiencies, and in leadership development. And I bring those three focus areas to nonprofit organizations to help them build their capacity. I'm located in the Metro Atlanta area, and I have the joy and the privilege of serving nonprofits across the state and several across the country as well. And so we focus on board governance, leadership development, and operational efficiencies.
I love those three because I have conversations with people, and I like to challenge people because there's thousands of nonprofits,
Oh,
thousands.
yes. Yes.
And you know what I've discovered by just having dialogue and talking to my podcast community? Everybody thinks their nonprofit is the most important, which it is.
As they should, yeah.
I mean, it should be. Like, if you don't think it's good, then you shouldn't be doing it.
Right.
Here's where I think I want you to, before we get into the three things I want you just to speak to is everybody loves to be part of a growing organization. So if you're a nonprofit and you're growing to the point you're attracting the kind of people you want to attract, you have to grow. And what I love about you, Glenda, is I don't know when it was, but when you put that board game together, I mean, I just thought it was the coolest thing ever. And because when I was at Shepherd, board games were everything. I look forward to the board games every day because I was learning new skills and I was kind of like having fun and learning. So before we get into the three things, I want for our viewers that maybe have never heard about how you use, and tell me again, I'm trouble. What type of learning?
Experiential learning.
Yes, explanation. Do you say it again?
Experiential learning. Yes.
Yes. Uh, there's a couple words I always get tangled on. So you heard it from Glenda. You didn't hear it from me. So tell her, when you're working with nonprofits, it's so critical that they grow because everybody likes to be part of a growth. So when you're talking learning and doing a board game, how have you seen that experience really provide a learning experience that translates into growth?
Thank you. Yes, that's an excellent question. The differentiator with experiential learning is about engaging in something, engaging in a simulation, a mock setup, if you will, that allows you to feel and encounter different things that will happen, in this case, in the life cycle of a nonprofit. And how do you handle those? How do you respond? How do you make decisions around it? How do you modify your behavior, which is really what it's all about, is recognizing your behaviors around fulfilling your responsibility and seeing the impact of those behaviors. And then in a safe space, because it's a game, and then you take that knowledge and you change, you do things differently, and you learn in a deeper way how you should do them from a best practice standpoint. But experiential learning is also about the activity, the engagement, and the learning, but then the reflection. How do you reflect? How do you look back on what happened, discuss it, and learn from it, and then take that and do something about it. And so it's one thing to be in a class or a course, which is how the majority of us learn, until the invention and the exponential growth of online learning and platforms and self-study and the like, in the ways that it has exploded over the recent years. But for the most part, we were confined to learning in a classroom setting, a lecture setting. And even that has evolved to where facilitators and teachers trainers have become more creative and bringing more engagement activities to their teaching and bringing in different ways to get the learner involved and to learn by doing, which is an old phrase. We all know the phrase learn by doing. And that is experiential learning. You're doing it, you're interacting with one another, you're sharing, you're getting feedback, you're reflecting on what's occurring, you're having conversation around that, and then you're walking away with new knowledge, that a lot of which you didn't necessarily realize you were learning in the moment, because in this particular case, you were having a lot of fun in the process, which was part of the design to make this a fun, interactive learning experience and a team building experience, because you're engaging with others around you on your team and creating a relationship with them that you might not have had before, which is a lot of times the root cause of some of the ineffectiveness of board members and teams, is that they don't have relationship with each other. They don't know each other personally. They don't communicate outside of that 60 to 90, maybe even 2 hour time frame of having a board meeting. It's just, chop, 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 let's do this, let's do that, let's go. And so this touches on many points in the whole process, and it helps you to grow because you're growing yourself, you're improving yourself. Leadership development is personal development. It begins with you as an individual, looking at where you're strong and where you want to improve and how things are going and where they need to improve. And with that, you can then grow more effectively because you're better equipped and you're better informed about how things can be done in a better way, in a way that's accepted as a best practice or has actually been proven through research.
Yeah, it's, I think our learning has, like anything, has developed over time. We look at our, classroom situation when somebody's just talking one way to you, we don't learn that much. When you're engaged, when you're actually participating, our learning goes way up. I recently, having grown up dyslexic, I always struggled with certain aspects of learning. Now, when I get a book, I get it on audio, I get it on print, and I take a marker and I mark that book up like nobody's business. I'm writing, I'm scratching through, and my retention has gone through the ceiling.
Yes.
And then I'll take the chat GPT and I'll give me the summary before. So I get the summary, I get the audio, and I do it at 1.5 speed. So I'm always like I'm listening to concepts. And then when I'm reading it, I'm just circling things and I'm just trying to engage as many senses as my brain can handle to retain. And I'm learning it. I can't tell you the difference between 5 years ago and today is like a different person. It's like I have to pinch myself because I read a book a week. And when I was like in my old self, if I read a book, and I would start books, but I never get through them. Another book would come in and I'd go, okay. And then I'd switch to that. I'm constantly like that silver object kind of thing. I would
Yes,
just,
yes.
because I wasn't getting the full value out of the book, it was easy to get distracted to the next bit of book. But so I want to go back to the game for just a second, because it was off the air. We talked about, what do you think? No, I don't think we talked about this.
Okay.
So the ideal nonprofit, I always tell people is it's okay to be where you are. It's not okay to stay there. So
Mm,
if I'm a nonprofit and I'm just going to say $300,000 in business in nonprofit donations or
mhm.
impact, whatever. If I'm stagnant for the last 3 years, you're not doing something right. Something's not clicking because you always have to be growing. Because if you're going to attract top talent, what do you see as a sweet spot for people investing in themselves, your board game? What do they need to be doing that really says this is a good spot to really accelerate growth?
So if I understand your question, are you asking what is the right timing for an organization to
Yes.
decide to make an investment in something like this game or just
Yes,
okay,
because I think like before I tried to get Justin on, and he's conceptually putting a nonprofit together. Would
okay.
that be the right time? No, he's just
No.
starting off. But
Right.
what what level of maturity or what level of a nonprofit would say, okay, we want to invest in ourselves, we want to invest in Glenda, we want to invest in the board game and really almost what they say hockey stick our nonprofit. What would that be like? Walk our viewers through that.
Certainly. Well, I would agree with you. Not at the beginning, at the very start of the organization, would you want to invest in this because you have too many other priorities that you're trying to align and to structure in order to get the infrastructure of your organization in place. So, if you're learning that, then you're not going to. When we talked about time management once before, you're probably not going to see this as a priority for your time,
Mhm.
which is a positive and a negative, a whole nother conversation.
Yes.
But with that said, it would be a great opportunity to attend a training where you're not leading this game with your team, you're participating in the game with your peers to learn more about what it takes to run your nonprofit. So when I've run this as part of my certificate course, certificate in nonprofit board governance, I've had a mix of folks who had the idea of starting a nonprofit, as well as folks who recently started a nonprofit as the founder, and those who had served on the boards of many nonprofits and were considered experienced and seasoned,
Mhm.
but still wanted not only a credential, but wanted to learn more about making their own the organizations on whose boards they serve more effective. And then I've had executive directors and I've had staff. So I've had a variety of people play the game and experience it and learn from it to get a perspective on what steps do they need to take to build the right entity, the right model, how, to get that introductory information around attracting the right board members. Because we know in order to get that tax exemption, you need 3 independent board members. And a lot of times those end up being your friends and family. But you quickly learn that if they're not skilled, trained, and experienced in serving on a board, you're quickly looking for more board members. So in
Yes.
that context, it is effective, but you wouldn't necessarily have to invest in the game. Beyond that, organizations that have been in existence for a minimum 5 years, I would say, and up, and have a budget size of, probably 100,000. I mean, you could do it with 50, but again, you're really focused on the you're building your program side of things. And honestly, this is what everyone does with a business, whether it's for profit or nonprofit. They're about the service. They're trying to get on the ground and running, and they don't necessarily think of operational infrastructure or the best practices that should be implemented. And so when they get to the point that they're calling me to come in to help them, that's the reason why. They had a great service, they filed all their paperwork, they found their initial buy-in folks who really understood their vision and the mission, and they were able to begin delivering their services, and they checked the box for having the right number of folks on their board. And then they realized, I'm ready to go to the next level and I need some support. I need some help building out my policies, procedures, and practices better. I need help understanding the proper way to recruit board members as a year-round activity. I've been the executive director and I've for a number of years and I've never had an evaluation. I don't know how well things are working. I don't have a strong working relationship with my board chair or my board in general, or I'm the one who's always finding board members as the ED instead of the board doing it. All of these problems, challenges, pain points begin to reveal themselves. And it's usually a consequence of um, growth. As you said, you're trying to go to that next level and you realize you didn't put all those things in place on the front end. And so, this game helps to bring you back to a centralization of what's the foundation here and how can we call out what we recognize is not working and work on that in an interactive gamified way where we're discussing not just generalities around nonprofit sustainability, but also specifics related to what's happening in your organization. What are the top 3 things we really want to tease out and talk about during the game? So it's applicable along a long continuum. And certainly if you've been in business for 20 plus years, it's certainly relevant because that's when you're thinking, okay, now we need to take a look at where we are and retool and reset and reground. So it's almost applicable at every level. It's just at the early stages, it's probably more advisable to attend a gameplay and walk away with resources and information versus taking it on as a tool you're going to use consistently as part of orienting your new board members, maybe and using it on a retreat situation, which we recommend you have, at least once a year.
Yeah, that's so, I love that. And I love you mentioned personal development early on. I think wherever we go, we have to be committed to it because if you're growing as a person, you're going to want to, whatever you're touching is going to grow too. And I had a friend, this was many years ago, and he had just gotten out of school and he made a comment. I won't mention the school because he'll know who it is. It's like, I am never going to open up another book. He went to a high level school and it was like, I am finished. It's like, no, you're not finished. You're just starting. But
yes.
we sometimes take on that, like that thought that we've arrived. And because you've talked about it, we're never there. Right. We're never there. We're always growing. We're always learning. We're always, because that's the fun thing about life is if you're in a growth mindset, like the book right behind me, Crystal brought to me, is called Mindset by Carol DeWitt. Talks about the closed mindset versus the open mindset. What a difference if you have that open mindset, because if Glenda tells me that this ought to be something I ought to look at, and you're the expert in the nonprofits, if I say, I know everything, I don't need to do that. Mistake, because we don't know. We're always learning. We're always growing. And so somebody that this is your life. This is what you pour in. You do this, you can do it with your eyes closed. I mean, you know what I mean by that. But it is that I wanted to, this is kind of off, but this came up in our conversation with a couple people this week. Everybody has a gala in nonprofit. What if you had to, in your experience in nonprofit, because he asked me, because Larry Hauser is a Christian, a nonprofit, senior comedian at 69. Okay. He was the lead. And so we were out talking to some senior communities, and this person says, hey, we need an MC for our gala or gala. How do you say that? Gala or gala?
I honestly don't know either. I go
Okay,
back
is
and
it
forth
like
because I've heard it both
peaches or
ways.
there's whatever that word, you say two different words and it's said two different ways. Okay. All right. I was wondering, am I saying it wrong? Because I'll be talking to him and I'll correct myself and he goes, I don't know what it is, but it's Gala. So
Yeah.
whatever, however you pronounce that. But his question was this is he wanted to bring fun and an upbeat, like high level of, you're there, you're coming to the event. You don't want some boring person just kind of like talking, you're falling asleep in the
Mm,
meal. So what do you think it takes for them to, because they do it once a year. And
mhm.
if they're doing it once a year and they don't put the proper strategies together, that's their big fundraiser. And if they blow it, it's not till next year they can recover. What would you tell somebody that's putting together a gala? What would be the top two things you would want them to really grab hold of to have the best possible event that they could?
Yes, well, you definitely said some of that, which was strategy. You used the word strategy, and that really goes back to planning. And so it's very important that you plan the event and that you're ready for the event, that you know that this is the right time for us to host it, because planning events such as a gala, a gala, takes a lot of time
Yeah.
and a lot of investment of resources. And that's actually part of the premise of the game is how do you manage resources, the key resources of money, people, and everything else. And the everything else is something like producing a gala where you have to have the venue and you have to put up front costs and you need the sponsorship and you need the attendance and you may be selling tickets, and selling those tickets is split from an accounting perspective between what's contribution and what goes toward what they received in return as far as a benefit from the dinner or any swag bags they take away and the like. So there's compliance rules that you need to contend with depending on how you're structuring the event. And you'll need folks to work the event, and as you said, you'll need someone to perform or to MC, and the seating arrangements and the date, and if it's indoors, outdoors, and if you have to have a backup venue because of weather.
Mm-hmm.
So it's definitely about planning to make sure that all of those details are attended to, but also that you have the support and participation of your board members. It can be used as an outreach event as well as an event for prospectively bringing on new board members, because you invite them as a guest of another board member and they sit together and they can chat and talk about the organization and begin to get familiar and acquainted so that you're building that pipeline of future board members. You could also attract more volunteers for the future because they attend the event. You might be recognizing and honoring people at this event, giving out awards for various supporters. So there's a lot that goes into it. And when people want to produce an event of this magnitude, it takes a lot of time and effort in planning. So planning is definitely key. The second thing I would say is making sure the timing and the resources, maybe that's three, planning, timing, and resources are there, that you're timing it right within your year so that you can devote the proper attention and it's not competing with, say, your year-end closing or your major report to your funder or a giant application for a major source of funding, and you need all hands on deck toward that application. So you want to get the timing right. And then the resources, as I mentioned, you're going to have to invest money and time, and you want to make sure you have a structure around how this is going to flow. You might want a honorary gala committee of key people in the community that are going to be the names behind this event so that you can attract more donations.
Mm-hmm.
Ideally, you would love to have a pot of money already amassed, accumulated for this event from your initial contributors. Maybe this gala committee, this marketing committee, if you will, they'll be the face of it in many respects. The steering committee have already given their contribution, and you're starting in the event with money already raised, almost like a capital campaign. You never
Yeah.
launch a capital campaign where you already, if you don't already have capital that you've raised from some key folks, so that when you put that proverbial thermostat out there to show how you're getting closer and closer to your goal, you're already starting with some money in the thermostat that's
Yeah.
already shaded in. So having those resources is really important as well. So planning, timing, and resources would
Dang,
be
I
my.
love that. I had two ladies on my podcast, and I won't give them the names, but they were doing a big event. It wasn't a gala, but it was a
Mhm.
big event. And I talked to her like 2 weeks after the podcast, and she said they had to cancel it because
Mm,
the ticket sales weren't there, and they had already committed a certain amount of their resources for like the food, the venue, and they were looking at like this is going to be a bloodbath because
mm,
because here you are, your board members that you think are your get out there and
mhm,
sell the tickets, and like half the board members hadn't sold one ticket. And I
mm.
told her, I said, that ain't good.
Mhm.
If they can't sell it, what do you think these others are going to do? And so I said, I, I think you made the right move because
Mhm.
all of a sudden you do one and 10 people show up, but you still got to get the caterer, still have to pay for the venue. So you're looking like losing money
Absolutely.
when you're supposed to be making money. But I think my point was I was dialogue with it. If your people that believe in your organization can't go out there and buy the ticket and offer the ticket, what do you have them on your board? I mean, not why you have that event, because you just like you said about that thermometer. If you're
Mhm.
looking at that thermometer and it's bottom, I mean,
Mhm.
well, that tells you, hey, you don't have anything going. You got to, because you can't lose money in an event like that. You're supposed to make money. And so it was kind of eye opener, but I think as she talked to me afterwards, she goes, I feel the pressure off my shoulders because I
Mm.
felt like I was carrying everything for the organization
Yes.
when it should be shared
Yes,
amongst
absolutely.
the key people. We'll even say the board members. Let's just say leadership.
Mhm.
Leadership is doing what you say you're going to do. And if you're behind this fundraiser, get out and buy a ticket and then get your friends there.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
anyway, I got off, but I'm glad you answered that because I see it coming up in my business, podcasting all the time because we always are trying to get support from donors. I mean, and our question before, which people didn't hear it, was maybe we said it on here. Your nonprofit is the most important thing to you. That's to you.
Mhm.
But there's thousands of nonprofits. So you're competing with thousands. Don't think of it just because it's not the most important to everybody else because they have my sister, I remember her talking to me. They had 3 nonprofits they were supporting, and the person calling them was going like, why aren't you contributing to mine? It's like,
Mm.
because yours is not mine. And it's so elementary, but we get caught up in our own self, like how you think it's important. But it's got to be everybody has their priorities, everybody has their emotional connection with certain organizations. And if you can't respect that and you think yours is the most important, I think you're going to be very disappointed because there's a lot of nonprofits out there.
That's
Okay.
absolutely correct. That's absolutely correct. And you have to find that's part of the success, the formula, if you will, is reaching the right people. That's another element of the game is that the most impactful organizations are reaching the right people, they're producing outcomes or fulfilling their mission, and they're being efficient with their resources. And so
Mhm.
in the area of reach, it's which people have a passion and a heart for your cause. They're out there. It's just doing the work to find them and identify them and attract them and engage them at whatever level that is. Is it as a board member, as a contributor, as a sponsor, as a volunteer, or as an employee? They're out there, and doing that work with your brand and how you manage the publicity around what you're doing in the community and the lives you're changing, the impact and the effect that you're having. All of that strengthens your ability to be sustainable, to be successful, and to reach the right people. And to your point, my father used to tell me all the time to, there's always going to be people coming at you with another request, another cause. And you have to decide which causes are the ones you're going to support, what's going to be most meaningful for you personally. And that's what you select, and that's what you give your all to. And that number is up to you, whether it's 1, 3, or 5. But that commitment is also up to you. How are you going to continue to commit to that and fulfill it? And whatever you do is extra. Is extra. Just this past week, I was coming out of a store and there was a table set up of some young men who were promoting a program for mental health and wellness in the school system. And I gave a donation. And then he did his part to try to bump me up higher with his pitch. And I said, well, I have my charities that I support, but I also have some discretionary funds that I use for times such as this, to be able to make a contribution to another charity for a cause that I align with, but is not in my top 3, if you will. And this is what my limit is for giving. And that was good for him. So you're right. There's so much competition, but there's a lot that you can still do to attract the right people to support you and your organization and your cause. So I just wanted to, build on what you just said with a couple of personal examples there. But
I really like that because, I think the intentionality of how our behavior speaks a lot for the value system of a person. And I like that word discretionary, because I do something similar. I always start at a low level, and I want to see the engagement of that organization with me, because if you're engaging at small levels and you're engaging right, I don't mind moving up. But if somebody kind of doesn't manage the small things, because every time, a commitment, a monthly commitment can grow.
Yes.
If you're not attuned to every donor, not treating every donor the same, but realizing that seeds grow. And if you don't have a system within your nonprofit that touches everybody in different ways, but touches them, because we all have choices in what we're going to spend our money. And I love that discretionary mindset is you're always looking, but you have your top 3 that you believe in, and that's the ones you support with the majority of what you're doing. But all of a sudden somebody comes and touches your heart, you might grow that commitment.
Yes.
I think I do it every year. I kind of look at my commitments and say, which one am I going to move out? Which ones am I going to move in? Because I think that's, I don't know what it is, but it just allows you to give back, but also know that there's thousands of options out there.
Yes.
The ones that do it right, and I'll go back to your board game, is learning is growing. And if you want to learn the essential things of what's going to move your nonprofit, you have to invest in your nonprofit. And your nonprofit, having fun and learning can't get any better than that.
Yeah.
So I want to respect your time, Glenda. So tell our viewers, how can they get a hold of you?
Absolutely. So we have the website on the screen. That's probably the quickest and the easiest way to reach out. We have a contact us page on the website, www.501cimpact.com. but they're also welcome to call 770-865-0979 is the local number. And we'd love to talk to you and see how we can partner with you and help build capacity through consulting, training, assessment, or coaching.
Awesome. I love it. Okay. Now our viewers, we have a commercial break. You always got to have a
Oh,
commercial.
yes. Yes.
Okay. So this is kind of, my partner sent me this book. This is one I'm almost finished in both audio and written. Buy Back Your Time. I've always outsourced. It just has always been, but I never outsourced to buy back time.
Mm.
So I think for everybody, because if I've heard it once, I've heard it 1,000 times. I don't have time. I don't have time. Hey, look, I'll say two people right here. Elon Musk, he manages his 24 hours different than you and me. Oprah, in this book, it said Oprah works 2 hours a day. You're going like, what? She's a billionaire. How do you just work 2 hours a day? Well, when you hear how he frames it, she has a routine that those 2 hours are like our 10 years because she is only making the decisions at the highest of high levels. So, if you're always leveling up in your ability to be effective and you can buy back your time, hey, Glenda gets 24 hours, I get 24 hours. How we spend them is up to us. So you have to think about how can you get more out of your 24 hours, not work harder, because hey, we all work hard, but what do we do? So we're implementing a new thing. It's a 90-day commitment. You invest $100 a week and you get up to 10 hours of dedicated support in two areas, email and calendar. If you can pull those things off your plate and then start doing higher level decision making and growth within your organization, and I'm not speaking to just nonprofits, I'm speaking to our profit companies, then you're going to get more done and you'll be like Oprah. Those 2 hours, you're going to crush those 2 hours every day. And so just if this is of interest to you, just come back and get in touch with myself. There's my direct number, or you can go to PodcastPete, be a guest on my show, and that'll help you to get more of your story out there. So that's my commercial break. Thank you. I did it in a little bit longer than I thought. I wanted to do it in 1 minute. So that was not a 1 minute commercial break. Okay. Thank you, Glenda.
Absolutely.
Our one thing, what would you want our one thing for our viewers to take home from our time on this podcast?
Oh, wow. Let's see. Today, I guess I'll go back to your gala example, and that because we talked at length about that, and let that be the one takeaway before you plan events or host events in an effort to raise funds for your organization. Really ensure that you've done the planning, it's the right time, and you have the resources. It sounds great. It sounds quick. It sounds easy. It sounds fun to produce an event of some kind, whether it's a gala or something else. But it takes the right planning, strategy, commitment, timing, and resources to pull it off and to be successful and to have made some money from it and not lost money. Maybe if you break even, that's not so bad because you've brought some awareness to the community by having promoted the event, but you certainly don't want to lose money.
Yeah.
So that would be the takeaway for today.
Man, that was a master class in about minutes. I love that. Please share this with people If you're out there and you hear Glenda, I mean, right there, if you just share that with people that are in the nonprofit space, because we don't know what we don't know. Now you know. So share this with people that you care about and that you want their organization to grow and be more effective in making a bigger impact there. Glenda, thank you so much. We know we won't be here next week for you, but we'll have somebody to fill in for your shoes. Not that we can completely fill in, but we'll have somebody that'll carry the nonprofit podcast next week, and we'll look forward to having you back on the 19th.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Pete. It's always a pleasure. Take care.
You're welcome. Thank you.